Now the forum is open for questions. I think my colleagues here are beaming with questions. They are ready with their questions. Though, ma'am, I'm I should say, I was actually spellbound because most of the things which we had in mind, you've already answered them. But then, yes, still, if my colleagues would like to have questions, and I'll start with my question first. Ma'am, there is a common thing which I think most of my colleagues present here would like to know. What I have heard and I have read about it somewhere that now, as per API scoring, the online courses which we create, they have API scores. And as we know that we have two categories for scores. One is for research paper writing and for this online content creation. So I would like you to throw some light on this aspect because I think most of them are not aware about it, so that they are motivated to create this online content.
Content creation, and why do we have API scores? API scores are basically contribution of people to the world of knowledge. I mean, how do we create new knowledge? How do we create usable knowledge, right? So the reason that people have started including online content creation, online courses, and please remember, you don't have to create the whole course. Even if you create a chapter, which is very well written and very well designed and so on, but what I would advise all of you is, and this is, sometimes you begin doing something, you falter, you fall down, you get up again, you learn more, and you go ahead. Now, whatever I have sort of accumulated over the years, I would like to advise that don't jump into it. There's a quote by Forrester that I like to use. It is the biggest sin and the biggest treason to do the right things for the wrong reason, right? Because sometimes you get into e-learning because everyone else is doing that. If he can do it, why can't I, right? So kai bar, is that the right reason? Sometimes there is a colleague of mine who says that, I've been working in this area, this specialized knowledge that I have on, let's say, consumer engagement and consumer centricity. How do you develop that? But there isn't, in the MBA syllabus, there is no special place for that. I've already done my research, I've engaged some students, but I want this knowledge to be shared. So what you do is you create a blog sphere, you create content and so on. And now, the reason the developers and policymakers are wanting to create API scores out of that is, it's all again creation of new knowledge. It's creation of publishable, usable knowledge and information, which is set free for everyone to use. Now, in a sense, e-learning and open e-learning, there are requirements where you have to pay a fees and so on. But things like SWAYAM, things like NPTEL, where you just join and you only pay if you register and you join, is a great wave of democratization of higher learning. Earlier we have these citadels of high learning where people had to pay fees. And please remember, you and I are blessed people, because in this country, higher education is still accessible to only about 21% of the entire population. So we are specially blessed, better than 80% people who never get access to higher education. For the first time, because of e-learning, because of movements like open learning, this has been become accessible to everyone. There are people who are IAS aspirants have actually said, I enriched myself because of these open courses, and then I went, looked at the references and I learned. So people living in remote locations. So one way of equalizing, creating equal opportunity, irrespective of location, physical resources, financial resources, economic condition, gender, caste, all of this. So it's a great democratizing force of our times, and we should really revel in it. And I'm especially happy because normally, we always put the tag of developing country to India in terms of participation in e-learning, in terms of creation of e-learning content. India is so much ahead of so many people. Yes. In terms of utilization of resources, a school level OER creation for newer courses, we are so much more ahead. So I feel very happy, especially when I'm sitting in an international forum and we are comparing all of this, it gives me special pleasure to be able to see how testing mechanism, assessment technologies are being developed in India and so on. Most of the software that is coming in, uh, uh, what is called verifiable software, is also uh, again, the open resource movement is a great movement. Please look at that. I will be happy to share the resources because I've done these workshops for the IGNU community, my own university, and so on. And I'm trying to get my researchers to get into the OER movement, that they can actually look at material, use it in their literature survey, review of literature, all of that, without being pulled up by anyone that this is plagiarized, copyrighted material, because it's released under a common license, Creative Commons license. So please feel free. You can actually take in videos which have already been made, or excerpt from the videos which are over here, because a creative license. So please make use of that facilitation. And when you say API is a good measure, gives you a certain standing, but a small advice: please look at instructional design, how to create quality assured material, what are the quality assurance criteria that we should look for good e-learning material, so that whatever you create is something that is rated very high, right?
Thank you, ma'am. I think my colleague, Dr. Indu Sharma, here has a question.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, why do we have to provide a test for the learners? Why do we have to provide a test for the learners?
Test.
Test,
In the
test.
e-learning content, why testing is an important
Why
part.
testing
that
required,
she's
ma'am?
asking.
See, learners can, how do they assess? When you write, when you design a course, it is to build certain competencies among learners, right? When you define a when you decide upon a particular course, you are trying to create a learning input which will create certain competencies among learners, right? So are the learners qualified to certify themselves that they've actually attained those competencies? You could actually put in assessment items where they can assess themselves. There's something called self-assessment in e-learning, right? Most people believe that if the learning outcomes have been achieved, there should be a way of external validation of that. It's only for the reason of that validation that we require that. A lot of MOOCs, for example, do not require an external validation. If the learner is able to complete all those activities, he can actually consider himself successful and go ahead. There is also something called gradation in assessment. In the sense, not assigning a grade, but be able to say that this person has achieved his outcome better than me, right? So that is and today, even if whether we like it or not, the world still needs sort of a certifiable competency, rather than, especially the world of employment, rather than a self-proclaimed competence. That is why we need testing.
Thank you, ma'am.
You want to ask him a question? Yeah, please.
While making the learning program, we face a lot of challenges, but lot more challenges are there when we implement the same. So, what are those challenges and how can we overcome them?
We got trained in classroom teaching. We are products of conventional teaching. Whether we like it or not, we are all solo performers. We like to stand in a class based on your own understanding, your own expertise, deliver something wonderful, and get what is called learner feedback, learner response, design. So we are what is called individual stars. E-learning, on the other hand, because there are so many things required to be put together, is teamwork. Good teachers, especially excellent teachers, find it very difficult to work in a team for creating a content which they feel they are the chief contributor. But they need people to hyperlink the material, they need technical support, they need graphic support, they need design support, they need assessment support, right? And put it together in a package, then design learner services around that. For example, how would the learners access? So, what kind of learning management system? What are the delivery system? Will the mentors do a good job? People who've been really good teachers, sometimes I find it very difficult to give control of their course to mentors, to counselors, and so on. And they're very, very critical of the way, that's not the way I wanted the course to be held. So we allow those people to train their counselor themselves. Go ahead. Therefore, the first challenge is to transition from a sole ownership of a course to joint ownership of a course. We're working in teams, and please remember, you may be a star performer, you may be an excellent academic, but if that course cannot be supported technically by somebody who's a technical hand, please remember he's as useful, as valuable as you are. Teachers find it difficult to respect equally people who are support staff. Don't do that. In a team, everyone is an equal player. The weakest link will decide how successful the course will be. So, people who are doing your LMS work, people who are doing your communication integration work, people who are doing your feedback loop, people who are doing the storyboard for your program, people who are doing the shooting are equally, we are all partners in this crime. Okay, equal partners. Therefore, if the course succeeds, we will all be uh, deserving of approbation. If the course fails, we are equally responsible. Therefore, that teamwork culture, mutual respect, respecting each other's competencies. I may be teaching that course for 30 years, but if the camera person does not record it well, does not give me the kind of, I will come out as a bad performer. So he's equally important, and I need to respect his competency, because what he is bringing to the table, I cannot bring to the table. So this is a realization that especially people who are senior, people who work for, who are acknowledged experts in their own area, find it very difficult to give up. My control on the course, my total say so. This happens because I say so. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. Right? People who, and if they want the learning platform to be devised in a particular way, this will depend upon the technology in use, right? The adaptation that you have used. So you don't have your say in everything. Please remember to confine your expertise to the content per se, accuracy of content, relevance of content, the delivery part, the support part. Please welcome into your fold people who are members together into making this course a great success. Now that is a big challenge. I'm not saying it's only ego. It's my belief that this expertise has been created by me. Who is he to tell me how should I be speaking this? Who is he to say I should have only a 2-minute introduction and a 5-minute? But this is how we, ऐसे होता है ना, मतलब मैं बहुत ही funny example दे रही हूँ. In a शादी, the main players are the bride and the bridegroom, but who controls the cameraman? Sir, अभी आप हाथ में ऐसे पकड़ के रखिए, अभी he controls what will happen. So the gift giving is happening. Freeze. Wait. अभी रुक जाइए. So he is the person who is the acknowledged expert there. I mean, it's gone beyond a certain tolerance level for me, but the fact is, this is how, as I said, we have to transition from a solo performer to a symphony. It's a symphony where one small misplay of a small quartet will make the whole thing go away. So we need to understand that. And a challenge is when you're saying implementing it. See, in a class, what happens? When you come, what makes for an effective class? That you know who your learners are, you know what they already know, you know what you did in the last class, you also know what they're doing in other subjects, right? For example, when I'm teaching CB, I know they've already covered motivation in their organizational behavior, but what I'm talking about is marketing motivation. They've done their personality, but I'm teaching personality as it impacts behavior. So I need to have a certain idea of their knowledge. When you are so again, you come in with all this information, you make an inspired performance in the class, you talk to the students, you answer that. Any question and you answer those questions, you go back walking on air because you had a good class. In an e-learning platform, you created content. That content had to be supported by somebody who did the instructional design or who told you that this is the template through which you have to create the material. This is where to break a concept and ask an assessment activity. This is where you have to put an activity so that the learner can test himself. So you have become dependent on somebody else to create good content. That means planning, organizing, implement becomes a big part. So before the course can be delivered, in your handling a class, you sit down the night before, prepare a nice presentation based on your understanding, based on your knowledge of the student, and come and give that performance. In e-learning, because it's literally going to thousands of students, thousands of learners, unintended people can go to your website, look at a material and comment upon that. You have to be absolutely sure of what you are saying is totally correct, there are no room for error and so on. In a class, sometimes we can take license with the truth, sometimes you can have exaggeration, sometimes you can have flights of fancy, because what is happening between me and my students, between us, right? When I go public, it is open to public scrutiny. Anyone can. Therefore, editing is a very important part. Checking of content, review is a very big part. So those things have to be part of your course planning. So course outline, good course learning outcomes, course design, course review, making sure, and then maybe giving it as a pilot to other people in your own university to say whether it flows well or not. If I'm satisfied with all that, then how do I deliver the course? What is the time for delivery? How would the students access it? Does everyone have the necessity abilities in terms of internet access? Can you access it on mobile? Is it mobile friendly? And so on and so forth. So all these questions have to be answered and prepared for. So there is a lot of backroom planning that has to be done. Once the course starts getting implemented, in terms of learner feedback, in terms of monitoring and oversight, there has to be a dedicated responsibility. The course coordinator himself cannot do that. Therefore, either your mentors or your course administrator or your network support people have to be given, there has to be a defined responsibility in terms of how is the course going, were there any glitches, out of the 5,600 students you have, how many of them reported that when they logged in, they were not able to get access to the class, right? Again, in e-learning, you can have asynchronous sessions and synchronous sessions. Most e-learning takes place asynchronously. People take the programs in their own way. But even completely asynchronous programs create situations for teachers to go synchronous. That is a live lecture, a live interaction, and so on. How do we plan that? Do we plan one session every module, every chapter? Do we plan one every block? How do we do that? Now, this is again part of academic planning that you have to do. So, there is academic planning, technical planning, delivery planning, assessment planning. All of those have to be planned. Therefore, a good exercise in good universities is to create a course proposal, present it to a body like an academic council or whatever, where your technical people are also there. And once the course is ready, again present it that this is what we've done, this is how it will be handled, this is how the assessment will be, and so on and so forth. So your own idea is tested out in front of collective wisdom of so many people, and they can comment on it. So far, it is only internal. Once it is out in the public, it's like an unguided missile. It can have unintended consequences. To prevent those, the better the planning we do, the greater the rigor with which we plan all these things, the better would be your, the lower would be your implementation problems. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Swati. It was actually a very valid question, and everybody is benefited out of that question.